Dead Island is a zombie game. I mean, who could have guessed that with a name like Dead Island? The hype for it was quite big, with its trailer giving people the idea it was going to be a really emotional game with quite the interesting narrative. It kind of does attempt that, but the execution is not great. Of course, with hindsight, we now all know what the main draw of it is. It's a zombie bashing, slashing, shooting, and exploding sandbox RPG game? It's basically Borderlands with zombies. Wait, Borderlands has zombies. Okay, it's Borderlands with only zombies. Wait, never mind, you fight survivors and you use mostly melee weapons, so it's not really anything like Borderlands, other than for looter mechanics. Look, it's a bit of a Frankenstein's monster of an idea, like most zombie-focused games are. So just ignore all the stitches. We're not technically looking at the original version, rather the definitive edition, which has some graphical updates, makes the game more vibrant and gets rid of the note and paper forgetting quests for some reason. The basic gameplay revolves around melee combat, from the most basic swings to more targeted dismemberment and breaking of enemy limbs to make them less of a threat. There is quite the variety of melee weapons, each differing in speed and damage. For instance, heavy weapons will swing slower and hit harder, whereas small weapons might not swing but instead just jab. Most weapons are quite straightforward though. You can also kind of dodge with the jump, but it's a bit weird. Also, all of the playable characters have access to a kick attack, which not only serves to knock enemies off balance, but is also a really good counterattack to any enemy charging at you. Well, almost any enemy, but we'll get to that. You can also throw weapons which deal a lot of damage, though you must go and retrieve your weapon after the throw. All of these different attacks you have to balance with your stamina bar, which drains when you run or attack. Pretty much any action costs stamina. If your stamina bar depletes and you're hit, you get knocked down to the ground, leaving you defenseless for a couple seconds. So you're rewarded for patiently and surgically crippling enemy limbs and punished for wildly swinging. There is also a selection of firearms from pistols to revolvers to rifles. They're alright against some zombies, but you'll mainly use them against any human threats you encounter. There are also status effects that some weapons will cause, mainly ones you've upgraded. These consist of things like bleed, fire, electricity, and poison. There are no obvious enemy strengths and weaknesses though, so adding special effects to a weapon is purely to add more damage and the ability to cause enemies to be stunned for a short amount of time. Though some characters are better at dealing damage with specific status effects, it still boils down to just an extra bit of damage. You progress in two ways, leveling up and applying skills to the skill tree, and acquiring new weapons and equipment. The skill tree and leveling up is pretty much like every other game released since Far Cry 3. You level up, you get a bit stronger, and you get a skill point that you can then apply to a single skill on the skill tree. These skills can be anything to straight up buffing the amount of health you have, to doing more damage with certain kinds of status effects, or just an entirely new attack altogether. You level up by doing quests and killing enemies. Each time you level up, takes more XP to level up the next time. Now, weapons will scale with your level. So as you get stronger, so will weapons you'll find laying around in the environment. But weapons also have rarity tiers, going like this. Grey, which are weapons that can't be repaired. White, the most basic of weapons. Green is uncommon weapons. Blue is rare weapons. Purple are unique and orange is exceptional. This all means that some will pretty much always be better than others. You can also purchase upgrades for weapons, making them do more damage and have more durability, and also craft upgrades, which gives them new effects like setting enemies on fire or causing them to bleed. Weapons in themselves also have a number of nice details. They'll get covered in blood, change appearance based on upgrades, and will slowly degrade as you use them. They'll go from being pristine and sharp to broken and blunt. There's a huge variety of weapons, ranging from knives, cleavers, machetes, swords, katanas, bats, axes, clubs, hammers, wrenches, and more, Each weapon has different variants, including special legendary ones. There are different kinds of machetes, for example, with different models, etc. Like the military machete and the homemade machete, for example. If I went through all of them, we'd be here all day, so I'm not going to do it like I did in the Left 4 Dead 2 review. There's also a selection of firearms, which isn't as broad. You've got pump-action shotguns, pistols, assault rifles, and revolvers, each with their own respective variants. Still quite the selection for a primarily melee-focused game. There are 4 playable characters in the game, each with their own skill tree, ultimate, and a couple of special abilities. There's Sam B, the one-hit rapper. He made a song called that went off the charts, and that was the only hit song he ever made. Now he makes ends meet by doing concerts singing that exact same song pretty much anywhere he can. He's good with blunt and two-handed weapons, focusing on hitting like a truck more than anything else. Knocking opponents down or sending them flying into the sky, he would be the tank of the group, if you want to put RPG labels on it. His ultimate is literally just him punching the shit out of anything that gets in his way. Zhao Mei was a spy sent to watch wealthy Westerners who visited the island, which was not the impression I got at first. In fact, given that they add poison damage to the weapons and get healing skills, I thought they were a doctor of some kind. Zhao Mei is all about sharp weapons and is the best damaged assassin type character. They've got the lowest HP out of all of them, but some of the best damage. In their ultimate, you get to go wild with their blade, cutting and mutilating your enemies. Perna Jackson, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, was once a trained police officer, now acting as a bodyguard for whatever VIP hires her. And now she is the leader of the group of 4 survivors. They're a natural support and ranger, specializing in firearms, so they are not actually all that good in the early game, as a lot of the buffs they get don't apply to the weapons you can get early on, given firearms are only easily accessible by Act 2. Their ultimate is unlimited use of their revolver for the duration of it. Pretty overpowered if you're getting headshots or fighting human enemies. Logan Carter was an American footballer. Because of this, he is a natural at throwing shit at people and telepathically retrieving it. He's a bit of a jack of all trades, not preferring blunt, sharper firearms, and can use all 3 effectively, though his skills generally lean into one-handed variants of weapons. He can also boomerang throwing weapons back to him, which is really overpowered once you have the skill at a high enough level. In his range mode, he random bullshit goes a bunch of knives at his enemies, which is pretty neat. Dead Island is very confused in its tone, or unrefined might be a better word. You've got all these wildly different people, from a rapper and a Chinese spy, who are not only immune to the infection, but also gain superpowers from it, and then you have a poorly lip-synced emotional scene. The game really, really wants you to feel sad for characters you've just met, or know little to nothing about. In the main story alone, there's too many characters being thrown at you, who then die. The only character death that made me feel anything was Jin, because their character was actually developed throughout the game. They grew and changed. The 4 main characters, while they don't change, have very entertaining personalities and interpersonal conflict, that they also avoid these tone issues. Everyone else is just set dressing, however. They look nice, but when analysed there isn't a huge amount to them because you don't spend long enough with each character to get the time to understand or know who they are. The game doesn't have a lot of memorable music. About the only thing that sticks in my brain is the main menu music. Most impressive and well done music has to be the ambient tracks, especially the one that plays in the church. The action tracks are very generic action movie themes that we've heard time and time again. It's not bad, just bland. The game does have some good atmosphere and especially atmospheric sound when you stop and listen for it, but not when it needs it most. The music itself isn't bad, it has its moments, but it's not like, say, Left 4 Dead or Halo, where it lifts the game to a whole nother level. Which brings me to my next issue. When you're walking for long stretches of time in an especially open area, there's little to look at or listen to, which is a shame. Because I want to be immersed in this world, but don't really get into it. Probably the most atmospheric section is Act 3, as it takes place mostly in a jungle, and it invokes this really unique feeling of apocalypse. Only since Total War Warhammer have I been this afraid of what's in the trees. Early on in the game, you'll only really encounter walkers, being the slow-moving zombies we all know and love. They can whack you, grab you, and try and bite you. Sometimes they'll charge at you, and on occasion, will have a melee weapon that they'll try and hit you with. They can also throw these melee weapons, which makes them a bit more of a threat. Later in the game, you'll see ones with body armor making attacks to the body and the head do less damage, ones that are poison that deal extra damage, and ones that are on fire that are slowly dying, but they also deal extra damage. Then there are the infected, which are the fast zombies, a la 28 Days Later. They can be quite the problem because of their frantic attacks and ability to close the distance quickly, but a good kick will send them off balance. Or you could throw a weapon at them. They're pretty weak. They can also use and throw melee weapons themselves, like walkers, though you don't see this until later in the game, so always be on the lookout when you hear them scream. They can kill you quite quickly. They also come in armoured poison and fire variants. Thugs are more or less a mini-boss zombie. They're very slow but very strong. Every hit from them knocks the player down. Their weakness is their arms. If they're cut off or broken, they are reduced to headbutts, which do far less damage and have far less range. And it also looks hilarious. They go from a real danger to chickens that try and peck you. It's brilliant. So the general strategy with them is to cut off or break their arms and then stay far enough away not to get hit by the headbutts. Don't bother kicking thugs either, they are too big to care. And yes, they also come in poison, fire, and armoured variants. Rams are giant zombies and straitjackets that can charge at the player. They take basically no damage from frontal attacks, but are weak from behind. The best way to deal damage to them is to hit them in the back after they charge. Dodge it, and then attack them while they catch their breath. Be careful if you attack them without letting them charge, as they're also capable of powerful kicks. They also have fantastic animations. It really does feel like they're a constrained beast that would give anything to rip you to pieces with its bare hands. Floaters are giant sewer-bloated infected with semi-translucent skin, capable of vomiting heated water from their stomach. They can also spew concentrated streams of vomit at close range, much like the Boomer from Left 4 Dead 2. Their weakness is close-range combat, as they are pretty much helpless, especially if you have a fast-swinging weapon, as this puts them in a stun lock, making them unable to fight back. Suiciders are slow-moving, highly volatile, swollen infected, capable of detonating when you get too close or on death. They also seem to be the only infected capable of speech, attempting to ask for your help or beg for death. Best way to combat them is from range, whether it's throwing something or shooting them. Best not get too close though. The Butcher is by far the most mad and intimidating zombie. Its arms have been ripped off and sharpened into daggers. It can run like an infected and looks completely nuts with long flowing grey hair and a rotted face. They will quickly kill the player with a flurry of melee attacks, if not countered with a kick. They are also really durable, unlike infected, which can be killed with a couple of whacks, so they really test your ability to balance your stamina. They can also heal themselves as not being attacked for a short while. Meaning if you don't put them down quickly, they'll keep coming. The one disappointing thing about them is you only see them in Act 3. They disappear in Act 4 for some reason. There are also various special mini-boss infected throughout the game. The first few you encounter whenever a new infected is introduced, other than the Walker, Infected, and Thug. You'll encounter a souped-up version, one that has more health, is a little bit bigger, and deals more damage, and acts as a mini-boss. You will also see special name thugs in the main and side missions that are a bit stronger and act as mini-bosses as well. There are also a few mini-bosses that are the size of thugs but act like infected. I'll call them infected thugs. There are only a few bosses like that in the game, one you fight in the jungle and the other is the final boss of the game, but we'll get to that. Human enemies consist mainly of thugs and bandits that you encounter in Act 2 and 3, but you also face soldiers in Act 4. They're armed mostly with pistols and some later on with assault rifles. Headshots with guns will pretty much always one-shot them, not much of a threat if you have a gun. There are also some human mini-bosses in the game, some with melee weapons, but all the ones you'll see in the main campaign have guns. They are like normal human enemies, except they don't die in a single headshot and have more health. The melee ones are stronger, but are technically infected and Butcher reskins in how they behave, despite not being zombies. Before I start with the story, I have to talk about one of the game's major issues. The beginning feels incredibly bland. You only fight the slow-moving zombies, the infected, and the occasional thug, so pretty much different flavours of the same kind of enemy. Early on this is fine, but this lasts for the whole first act, which is about 2 to 3 hours of gameplay. More if you're doing side missions. This makes the early combat exceptionally bland, as it's either slow, fast, or slow but strong zombies that look very similar. Then there's the fact that to get to different destinations you either have to walk or drive, and you might not always have a car near you, so you're going to have to end up walking some of the way anyway. What do you do while walking? You fight the same 3 enemy types as you travel from A to B. The same 3 enemy types you fight in the main and side missions. When people say they hate zombie games, this is what they think of. Slow, uninteresting, and repetitive combat. The game is actually incredibly good when you get past the first act, but it takes some time to get there. It feels like they wanted to leave some of the more exciting stuff for later and really could have benefited from just more enemy types early on. Alright, now our story begins with our chosen character waking up in a hotel after partying a bit too hard. It takes about 5 minutes for shit to start going wrong and you fall down an elevator and meet the Radio Man.
I can see it through the camera. Feeling alright, mate? The shakes? Fever? Chills? Good. I'll introduce myself later. Right now, we gotta get you the hell out of there.
And then have to start running for your life seconds later. After getting the zombie chomp, you wake up in a shack. Side note, how'd these survivors get us to the shack? More specifically, how'd they carry Sam B here? Like, did they carry him, or have we gotten some kind of teleportation powers from the zombie bite? Like, how do a couple of survivors carry a man that big through hordes of zombies and here safely? Video games need to stop treating being knocked out as a writing tool to get the protagonist where they want.
What are you doing, sir? This is the woman's restroom.
You go outside and help a lifeguard fight zombies, introducing you to the combat system, and after that you have access to co-op, which doesn't matter because none of my friends have this on PC, and I didn't have the time to bully them to get it for this review. Now that we've finished the prologue, the Radio Man says we're immune and promises he can get us out of here. Then we are released into the area where Act 1 takes place. It's a resort filled with beaches, hotel rooms, and zombies in bikinis. The game here is actually very slow to start. You go to secure a lifeguard station, which then becomes one of the 2 main hub areas. The other is a lighthouse where a group of survivors who don't want to listen to the promises of a strange Radio Man, now hoping to use the lighthouse as a signal for help. After that, the first couple missions very much feel like side missions, because they are essentially doing odd jobs for people. The only quest here that is of note is the one where you have to pick up gasoline to burn corpses, which makes no sense. You see the pile of bodies back there, well now it's on the beach burning, somehow. Oh, and he's crying. He didn't know these people. He dragged their dismembered corpses outside and then down to the beach with no sign of distress, but the moment they were on fire, it became somber. Maybe it's a sort of last rites thing, because they're burning and being cremated. But no, he wanted to burn the corpses so that it didn't attract more zombies. So why is he crying? Maybe he got ashes in his eye? I don't know. Speaking of side missions, this is one of the best aspects of the game because there are so many and the dialogue, while not written great, is charming. People around the island need beer, water, or their teddy bear that is with a deranged survivor who tries to bludgeon you on sight.
And I'm looking for my teddy bear. I can't fall asleep without him and I'm very tired. And those monsters keep knocking. Will you find my teddy bear?
Yep.
The last time I saw him, he was in our bungalow. Number 15, where I live with my sister Jenny. Remember, his name is Teddy. Tell him Annie sent you, and I'm sure he'll go with you. He's a brave teddy bear.
Soaking into everything.
Die!
Teddy! Where have you been? You've been a bad boy. Say thank you to the nice people.
The side missions are great. One thing that was a bit annoying is there's no choices or anything like that, which isn't a problem except for one mission where a guy pays you to lie to his friends and say he's dead. I would like the option to at least set him on fire, because you don't need dialogue wheels for that. And we all know EA isn't going to give up the rights they have to the dialogue wheel, are they? We've been spoiled with side missions here. It wasn't enough to keep me playing after finishing the story, but they were good fun for breaking things up. If I were playing with other people, I might have felt more compelled to go back and finish them. You also eventually get sent on a supply run where you have to drive around the map, which is a pain in the ass. And what is this?
Stop right there! Stay where you are! Hey, easy there, friend. We're not infected. You're alive? I didn't think there was anyone living left out there. Come on, follow me. If you're looking for the evacuation, too late. It's closed. Colonel White's orders.
Yeah, actually, we were.
Don't worry. This is an old bomb shelter, very well fortified. It was the evacuation point for anyone exposed to the disease. They were examined and quarantined in hopes that help would arrive. But the contagion spread, and finally they told us to shut this place down.
On this godforsaken island 10 times over. We have enough food to last us for years. We are self-sufficient, and we will fight together until we've drawn our last breath. Yes, sir!
So what kind of arena are you talking about exactly?
They're survivors, Major. We have 4 arenas, full of starving infected who would tear us apart like rabid dogs if given half a chance. Each arena is set up to offer soldiers the ultimate test. The task is to kill all the infected before they can kill you. There's only one rule: survival.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see the point of this.
It's a test of courage. A rite of passage. We execute our last order and slaughter the infected. And those who fight best will be rewarded. Only the strong will survive.
The arena is a side mode, where you fight progressively harder waves of zombies, which is to be expected given the name. The reason given for this is it's a test of skill for the remaining military, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but hey, I'm always up for a good survival mode. However, as far as the survival mode actually goes, pretty average. If you have a few mates, I can see you having a blast here for a little bit, especially on the harder maps, but solo, it boils down to running around and trying to whittle down the horde. Except you're doing it with mostly melee weapons, so it doesn't have that fun apocalyptic feel of something like Nazi zombies. Eventually you get sent to the hotel so you can get a van to go into town. This is where the story picks up. You get the van to a garage where the mechanic and his daughter, Jin, kitted out with armor plating. The mechanic Earl, whose name I had to look up on the wiki when writing this script, because we have known him for the better part of 10 minutes, is bitten and wants us to take his daughter Jin with him, in exchange for helping him turn the van into a death machine. Jin serves as portable storage for weapons and different things. There was also a helicopter pilot named Nikolai, but I'm writing a review here, not a synopsis. What is important is he also offers to get us off the island. This doesn't come up again until you do a side quest, which is weird. Like, shouldn't that become the main goal? Seems a whole lot easier and straightforward than what this weird radio guy's promising. Then you head off to town, which has to be my favourite location in the game. It introduces the ram and floaters. There are lots of flaming and poisonous enemies. It just all ramps up from here, and it's great. There's a bunch of religious survivors in a church who are all dealing with what some might perceive as the end of the fucking world differently, including a nun who is the leader of the group. You get introduced to hostile survivors who once made up the gangs on the island, who have set themselves up in the old police station, and this is the point where you start getting guns, which is nice. Also, across the blown up bridge is where the remaining police and the richer families, as well as the mayor, are just chilling, not wanting to help anyone. After acquiring food, Jin decides against everyone else's judgment to give the food to the gangsters. What follows is a rescue mission, and after killing all the gang members and finding Jin, this cutscene plays.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Get out! You two, go!
I just tried to help. I tried.
It's all right, love. We're getting you out of here. Christ, what did they do to you?
I just want to leave. I just want to go.
Fuck her, man. Bitch sold us out.
Hey, come on, man. We're a team, right? We stick together.
That's exactly why she shouldn't come with us. We all could have died. She fucking lied to us. I'm not saying leave her here. Give her to the nun. If we could head to the hotel.
She made a mistake. She was trying to do the right thing. Let's just take the supplies back to the resort and get her off the island. She doesn't belong here anyway.
We'll look for the goddamn car.
And what if she make another mistake?
I don't think she'll be making that one again.
This is the only scene that made me really feel something, and I was actually quite shocked they went there. The way Perna and Xiaomeng send the guys out of the room. It's one of the things which is, an all-male gang of violent survivors would do something like this, but I didn't expect the game would go here. From here on out, it's spoiler territory. Head to the timestamp on screen if you want to avoid these spoilers. You have been warned. They're gone? Good, they get to miss the spongiest boss in the game. And no, it's not Afran. So after saving Jin, you finally make contact with the radio guy, who reveals himself to be a colonel by the name of Ryder White, who is in the prison island across the bay, the one surrounded by mines which houses the most infamous terrorists in the world. This isn't sketchy at all. So he sends you on a wild goose chase, says you need to get yourself a boat and find Moen, who's some kind of gang leader who apparently knows how to get on the island. You eventually find the boat, as it's in the hands of Moen's rival, Afran. Bullet spongy boss fight ensues. When you kill him and have the boat, Moen doesn't know anything about how to get to the island.
Bra from the radio has it wrong, okay. I don't know no way to any prison. Can't help you with that. But I do know where the Walking Dead come from. And if you want, I can take you there. Deep in a jungle.
But he does know where the plague came from. A lab deep in the jungle. Fuck it, what's the worst that could happen, right? Ryder seems pretty eager for you to go there because it turns out his wife is infected and he wants to save her. Go figure. You go to the lab and no, they didn't make the virus. They test cosmetics on animals. The reason it's in the middle of nowhere is because the last lab was firebombed by Animal Rights Association. Dr. Robert West is trying to figure out where on earth the virus has come from. He believes it's a mutated form of Kuru, which is a very real disease that affects some people of the native Papua New Guinea. It was believed to be caused by the tradition of cannibalism, often by consumption of the brain, making it more common in women and children, as the men would often eat the muscles. I'll let the good doctor finish explaining.
You all have the same blood type, O negative, but that might just be a coincidence. For some reason, the virus doesn't react to your T cells the way it does to others. It doesn't mutate, it doesn't duplicate, it just dies. The only possible way to make someone else immune would be a complete blood transfusion. Not a practical solution, as it would likely result in your death. Good. Now, this is what I do know. It appears to be a strange mutation of a degenerative neurological disease endemic to this region, Kuru. It's a prion disease like mad cow, only it affects humans, and was first discovered among the indigenous tribes that practiced cannibalism.
But in all seriousness, if you want to know more about Kuru, I recommend actually looking it up because I did not put a lot of research into it for this video. I'm reviewing Dead Island, not explaining different diseases. So he gets us to give him a blood sample and also wants us to get a sample from the natives. So we ritualistically fight a bunch of them, including a boss fight against the greatest warrior who is just a giant infected. We bring back the blood and now we need to go hunting for mummies. We employ the help of one of their shamans, and when we arrive in the tomb there's a girl who the shaman tries to kill, so we promptly kill him. We bring back the samples from the mummies and the girl, whose name is Yerma, who Robert wants to keep there and test if she's infected. Ryder really needs you to get to the prison soon, and it turns out that's entirely possible because Moen was lying. He knew exactly how to get to the island the entire time. So we go get fuel for the boat and go back to Jin's father's workshop to collect metal rods to help move the mines out of the way. While Jin's there, she kills her zombified father. You know, normal stuff. You might be thinking, this is it, this is when we make it to the prison. No. Turns out zombies have gotten into the lab. You go back there, and everyone except Yuma is dead. She locked herself in a cage because Robert wanted more and more of her blood. He did manage to create a vaccine, however. So we finally get to go to the prison and meet Ryder White, and we immediately lose contact with him. We then do half a dozen different chores and odd jobs for inmates, which lasts way too long, mainly revolving around getting them weapons. You even get help from this one guy named Kevin. Meanwhile, Jin is losing her mind being surrounded by all the prisoners, adding a second layer of urgency, which is understandable given their recent experience. Finally, when you're just about to get the weapons, Ryder contacts you and has organised a way for you to get to him and come and meet him. He even manages to get Jin and Yoma there as well, though Moen died on the way there. So you go up to the elevator and then...
Hey, get up!
You get gassed. You get woken up by Kevin, and as it turns out, Ryder took the vaccine. Kevin says he's got a chopper on the roof, and once he's out of here, he'll nuke the island. Of course he will. What follows is hallway upon hallway filled with countless enemies. You could fight through them, but I just ran through. Once you reach the roof, you have a small shootout and fight a small horde of zombies, and then this happens.
What are you trying to do, Colonel?
I don't have to explain myself to you.
Look, your wife is gone. Look at her. She ain't coming back.
Take one more step
But you
and
can
you're dead.
still save us.
The doctors in Sydney will make more. We'll send helicopters. We'll save everyone.
With a nuclear bomb? Kevin told us the plan. You're gonna kill everyone.
Maybe I should I have no choice here, right? This virus threatens the entire bloody world. Benoit is lost either way.
It's easy to kill millions of faceless nobodies, isn't it? They hardly... But killing someone you love? It's not so easy, is it?
Son of a bitch!
This is the only character death that's generally sad. The music helps, but we also got to know the character, and their death directly ties with their character development. They came full circle. Good job, Dead Island. You wrote a competent character. Here, you get a gold star. Anyway, Ryder White uses the vaccine and mutates into the spongiest enemy in the game. I don't understand Antivax's points. He can take bullets like a champ. I mean... I don't really know what to expect, as all the bosses in the game consist of basic enemies, health turned up, which is fine, but towards the end they just became impossible to kill. It might be more bearable in co-op, but then again, health scales with the amount of players, so it could be worse. Either way, you kill them and fly away into the night, sunset, I don't know, but you finally leave Dead Island. What a mixed game. I mean, it's fun in the middle, but it's such a slow start, and the end just drags out so long. The game could have been just as good, if not better, if it was a couple hours shorter. But wait, we're not done yet. There's still a DLC to talk about.
Questions, Colonel.
Yes, sir.
Are you prepared to follow any and all orders from your commanding officer?
Of course, sir.
Are you prepared to kill the enemy without hesitation?
Yes, sir.
If necessary for the greater good, are you prepared to kill civilians?
Yes, sir.
Are you prepared to kill this enlisted man?
Yes, sir.
This fellow officer?
Yes, sir.
This young girl?
Yes, sir.
Will you kill this woman?
Yes, sir.
Interesting.
You think he won't push the button because of her?
He hesitated, which is why he was reassigned to Benoit.
So who is she?
His wife.
Can we get her to the island?
She's already there. She's been there 6 months now, and I believe she's the best chance we have to slow him down.
We're approaching the slums, Colonel. Lewington, are you all right, mate? Let's just do this. There's still people down there, Colonel. Irrelevant. Execute. All right, boys. On Colonel White's order. Show us the fireworks. Lewington, why are you looking at me like that?
Yes, sir. Are you prepared to kill this princess?
Yes, sir.
This
Yes,
fella
sir.
will you kill this
Emily.
This
Yes, sir.
fella.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Going into the DLC, I thought it would be short and rather uninteresting, and as far as gameplay, it was. Not saying it was bad, just more of the same. That being said, there are a few things I like. For one, Ryder not being infected has no skill tree to worry about. His ultimate is bullet time, which is really fun, and you get really good weapons from the beginning. But then there was one thing that surprised me about this DLC. It has a really good story compared to the base game, and answers questions I didn't really think they were going to answer. So for one, this DLC goes parallel to everything happening in the main game, which is surprising, but also brought me up some new questions. How the hell did Ryder White start getting a super zombie survivor squad to do his bidding and make a cure, while he himself was on the island, not in the prison? Well, I'll tell you why and how, and it shocked me. So halfway through the campaign, after blowing up the bridge, Ryder gets in the chopper and heads to the prison to get his wife, who's been bitten. A certain someone has been helping Ryder's wife this entire time. Their name is Kevin. At least that's the name they gave you and Dr. White. Turns out he's Charon, a globally wanted terrorist and hacker for hire. He was the voice on the radio impersonating Ryder White the entire time, which makes so much sense. Why would the colonel of the military be in a military prison? It also explains why he just appeared and helped us. He also generally planned to leave with Ryder and help his wife. He knew what he needed to slow down the infection. He instructed our scientist friend to make a vaccine and a vial of the virus, which is what Ryder injected into himself at the end of the game. Well, and when Dr. Robert refused to send the girl who was the source of this to him with the vial of Kuru, he released the zombies into the building and then called us to get what he wanted. He planned to knock us out from the very beginning to just get what he needed. He also knew that the virus would have progressed too far by now, so even if it was a vaccine, it wouldn't work. Ryder hadn't lost it when he got his wife up there. She was okay prior to that, and he figured that if this was the vaccine, he might be able to develop some kind of cure and save her. When he first realized Charon was messing with him, he was fully prepared to kill him and leave his wife until he revealed that there was a way to save her. I'm going to assume the reason he made sure time-wise that she'd be, fully infected was so he'd have an excuse to bring Yerma, as she was the source of the cure and the plague in the first place. It also explains why the random native chieftain decided to go kill her. She was the source of the plague in the first place. He knew she was a ticking time bomb. All this leaves me to say one thing. Why was none of this in the main story? None of this is vaguely hinted at. Everything makes so much sense now, even why we felt like we've been strung along and sent from place to place. But you only know that after playing this DLC, which not everyone is going to play. Still, it has set itself up for quite an interesting sequel on Dead Island Riptide, as I didn't think they'd be connected beyond, oh no, zombies again. But no, Charon is planning something.
Kevin told us the plan. You're gonna kill everyone.
He's flying the fuck out of here and calling in the bombers. Thermonuclear annihilation. Maybe I should start with you. My name is Ryder White. I'm a colonel with the BIDF. I saw him and took my wife. You need to get out of there, and I can help you.
I have it, just as you asked for it.
A super virus derived from a mummy.
Not from a mummy. From her. So many dangerous criminals and terrorists, including Karen, the infamous hacker for hire who has worked for everyone from Al-Qaeda to the Yakuza. Meanwhile...
As long as the world is the way it used to be.
It's not. And never will be. Trust me.
She's the source of the plague. A walking time bomb.
Dead Island is very much a mixed bag of a game. It had a ton of good ideas, the location choice was great, and that's not just me saying that because I'm Australian and it was in a sort of Papua New Guinea area, The origins of the zombies were interesting, the story had its moments, but had such mixed direction that it's hard to get immersed sometimes. The gameplay when everything gets going and as new zombie types are introduced is really good. Dodging rams and acid spits while in the middle of a horde is really intense, but early on, without some of the more interesting enemies, the combat falls flat. The arena mode was half-baked, and I wish there was more to do outside of just side missions. Overall though, especially with a couple friends, Dead Island is an easy recommendation. Also, watch out for the car drift.